Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down. So this week, with all the movies that came out, the Seaman only saw one new movie that was actually releasing this week and saw a movie that he pre-screened. It comes out on Thanksgiving. That was Knives Out. If you want to know what I thought about that movie before it comes out on Thanksgiving, you can see the video right there. But there's one other movie that I wanted to see this weekend that was not Frozen 2, man. Too many people. I love a good packed theater for a Marvel movie, but if it's not a Marvel or a DC, or pretty much just a superhero movie or like a big action flick, I'm not about opening nights that are crazy packed, man. And the Frozen crowd was out in full force, so I was like, I'm a hold off on Frozen to like maybe midweek, and maybe we'll see it like Monday or Tuesday, something like that. The other movie, though, that came out this weekend that I wanted to go see stars Mr. Chadwick Boseman in the first movie produced by the Russo Brothers outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, since they got in on that. And immediately, those two things just were going to draw me to this movie. Now, I won't lie. After watching it, kind of wish that the Russos would have directed and Marcus and McFeely would have been writing, the production team company that they're creating. Their first flick, I believe, will be, I think it's called Cherry? Or something like that. It stars Tom Holland. I'll be certainly very, very interested about that. But from a production standpoint, they do a pretty good job. And Chadwick Boseman, he's so good. And he reminds you that he's been really good for a long time before Black Panther, and he can do things way more than Black Panther. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, man? Take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into 21 Bridges. That's right. Like I said, the first movie post the MCU conclusion of its first big Infinity War saga. The Russo brothers dipped their toe into 21 Bridges, which is a movie written by Adam Mervis and Matthew Michael Carnahan, and Brian Kirk directing. And I tell you, there are elements of this movie that feel like you could tell the Russos were there. The action specifically. The action in this movie is fantastic. And before we get into that, I guess if you're unfamiliar with what this movie's about, Chadwick Boseman plays a NYPD detective named Andre Davis. He gets brought into a case after a pair of bad guys, criminals, murder 8 New York City police cops in a heist that kind of goes bad. And the concept of the movie is, if we're going to catch these guys, we got to figure out where they are and lock them in. And they, quickly pinpoint, most likely they're in Manhattan. And if they're in Manhattan, we got to shut down everything, man. There's 21 bridges. Shut them all down. There's tunnels. Shut them down. Any way in or out of the city, shut down Manhattan Island. And from there, the movie rolls in, albeit something fairly traditional, fairly, in line with a standard cop thriller. It follows all of the beats that you should get, and it's not getting a ton of love from critics because of that. I've seen paint-by-numbers cop thriller, and yes, okay, there are elements. It's very, very traditional, but at the same time, it's like some of my favorite cop thrillers come out of those movies, man, from back in the day. And this movie, yes, while some of it is a little predictable and you can see some things coming, the execution, I thought, of the movie was really, really well done. And Chadwick Boseman just steals the show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One, because of the action, man. If that was where it felt like, maybe the Russos might have been involved a little bit, staging some of these action sequences, because the action in this movie is absolutely phenomenal, man. From the opening heist sequence with our criminals, the way that one's staged is fantastic. There's a couple different showdown moments where the criminals are either showing down against like a group of cops, or Chad Boseman and Sienna Miller's character, Frankie Burns, are closing in on them. And anytime there's action, it's really, really good, man. Like, I really enjoyed the action in this movie. Like, it pulls you to the edge of your seat. It elevates some of the tension and suspense in the film because you're not sure what could happen in some of the action moments. And for that, the movie is very, very good. As far as the beat and what is actually going on, yeah, you can probably see where it's gonna end up, but I think the performances kind of pull you in, and I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen the last 45 minutes to an hour of the movie. I was just like, we know something else is gonna happen. What is it, man? I mean, that's probably this, but like, I was just intrigued. I don't know. I got sucked in on this one, and I think more than it being, Brian Kirk directing, I think he does an okay job, and albeit Mervis and Carnahan's script is okay. It's the performances, man. I was just in love with watching Chadwick Boseman on screen, not playing Black Panther, because you forget, man, the first 5 minutes he's on screen, it's a little awkward because you forget the Wakandan accent is not his natural speaking voice. And he's doing this kind of, I think it's Brooklyn, a little bit of a Brooklyn accent. So it's a little weird. And it takes a minute to adjust because it's not Chad's regular voice quite 100%. And it's definitely not what we have become used to hearing him speak as, Black Panther T'Challa. But once you get past that little bit of a hurdle, he is absolutely brilliant in this thing, man. I mean, he succeeds, as always, in the action sequences. I loved watching him be a detective, like breaking down a crime scene. When he shows up at the first scene, the way he breaks it down and figures out what was going on, it's probably the best scene in the whole movie. Like, you have cops on the scene already, and they're talking about things, and Chad's like, nah, man, like, just follow this, and then follow this, and follow. And when he's doing the detective work, really, really like what he's doing in this movie. And the way he figures things out, and the way he plays, and a very key characteristic to his character that's brought up right at the very beginning. The beginning of the movie, you're just kind of like, well, this is an interesting spot to start. But it reveals something about him that makes it a very integral thing that he's in the story to begin with. Because of that thing that is attached to his character, it pinpoints him to be front and center for this investigation for specific reasons that he doesn't necessarily follow all the time. And it's because he's about being a good detective, about figuring it out and making sure he gets the real story. And watching him do that stuff is wonderful. He is magnetic, man. Like, you are just drawn to the screen. You're sucked in. You're pulled in. You end up enjoying this movie a lot because Chadwick Boseman is the freaking man, and he certainly reminds you of this. I mean, like, you forget this guy has played Jackie Robinson, James Brown, like T'Challa, just to name a few. But then, like, everything he touches, man, he's just so good. And then you throw in Sienna Miller, who I haven't seen in a movie in a while. And she's playing Frankie Burns, who's a narcotics cop. She works the narcotics beat, and she's great, man. Like, she comes in, she the way she plays Frankie is just so enjoyable because you're not always entirely sure what her deal is. Like, everything they ask her to do is really good, but you're like, why are you here? Like, and it's one of those things, like, why is Chad Boseman there? They were both hand-picked. And the way she plays the role, the way she works with Boseman is quite good. They work well together, and they also have some conflicts with each other in the way that they're working and things they're doing. And those moments are super tense, and it's because the performance that the two of them are giving is really, really good. Then we have Stephan James, who plays Michael, and he's probably your breakout star in this movie. Granted, he's already starred in some really, really big pictures. I mean, he was Jesse Owens in Race, the Jesse Owens story. He was Alonzo Fani Hunt in If Beale Street Could Talk. He was spectacular in that. We've seen him pop up in other movies like Across the Line and Selma, and he is great. He's one of our two criminals, alongside Taylor Kitsch, who plays Ray, and he just plays his role really, really well, because him and Ray are totally different, and it's one of these things, like I said, it's a heist gone wrong, and the thing that goes wrong, he's almost the moral barometer between the two of them, and he feels out of place in a lot of the situations he's put into, and he has to react more than act, whereas Taylor Kitsch, who plays Ray, also really, really good. He's the guy, like, don't say very much, but you should be very, very scared of. And to have that counter between the two, where you have this one guy who's trying to think more logically, and you have this other guy who's just like, this is what's going on, man. We got to keep moving and get out. Don't matter who's in our way. And what Stephan James does, I thought was really, really good, man. He's the other person that draws your attention, sucks you in a lot into this film. And him versus Chad Boseman a lot in the movie is wonderful. And then, as I mentioned, Taylor Kitsch plays his more aggressive, badder counterpart, Ray, who really takes control when things start breaking down, but like does it like business. Like these are both former military guys. So the way he functions is very much like that and more tactical. However, there is one thing that surrounds his character that I could not stand in the movie because it was only there to serve as a plot device to push the movie forward. And it's the only time you see these two guys really act stupid. And it's like the linchpin to kind of progress the movie. And it's one of those things like it happens and you're like, why would you do that? And then you're like, well, you had to do it so that we could insert these other characters and have these other things happen. But it's so dumb. It honestly felt out of character because as wild as Ray might be, the thing that he does, it didn't even feel like it fit his character. And at least if he was going to do it, when Michael is talking to him, it should have not played out the way it did. That was the only thing that really pissed me off about the film. But James and Kitsch are both really good as our criminals, as our bad guys that we're chasing down. But James's performance is a little bit more electric and it's a little bit more meaningful and important. And he has a big role to play and he really, really executes it quite well. Then you have J.K. Simmons, who plays Captain McKenna. He's the captain of the unit of officers who were shot. And I tell you, man, his opening scene, when he's kind of going through and Chad Boseman kind of asks him, like, give me the names. He goes through each of those guys. He plays that scene so well, man. You really feel what he's feeling as far as, like, these are his guys and, like, part of his family. This happened on his watch, and he's not happy about it. He plays that stuff really well. And when you get to the back end of the movie, he has another sequence, interaction with Chad Boseman that is also just as electric, and it's just real solid, dude. Like, you're just sitting there. It's one of the tensest moments in the movie, and you're just seeing top-notch actors just not physically slug it out, but like slug it out on the screen with like their performances, man. And watching the two of them bounce off of each other is just really, really enjoyable. I mean, J.K. Simmons is a pro, and he's absolutely delightful anytime he's in anything. And there are a bunch of other people who pop up in the movie that do, a fine job. But those 5 folks, man, and really the core focus, and specifically Boseman, Miller, and James, man, they really, really do a good job. And for me, it's what makes the movie work. And I thought the performances elevated the material, and albeit, kind of traditional and maybe a little predictable at times and kind of paint by numbers cop thriller, it doesn't mean you can't enjoy this movie, man. Like I said, the action is great and the acting is great. And while I think this movie could have been something special if the Russo brothers were more heavily involved, for their first movie out of the MCU, I thought they did a good job, man. They gave me something that I was familiar with, something I feel like I haven't seen in a while. And the other thing, too, is the score. The score in the movie is quite interesting because the entire time I was sitting there, I was just thinking back to, like, old school Denzel cop thrillers, man, like Ricochet, and that other one he did with John Goodman. It was just on the other night too. I can't think of the name of it. That kind of is, it's just like those movies, that era of cop movies. The sound, the score felt like it was coming out of those movies, and this movie felt more like a throwback. And we continue to see a lot of critics not liking throwback styled movies because they're like, you should be better than that. We've already seen this done. This is predictable. Whatever, man. Those movies I enjoyed as a kid, and to get something that can transport me back to my childhood in some way. I mean, you had me thinking about Ricochet. You know how many people could just pull Ricochet out of the Denzel catalog? I bet you it's not too many. And that was the thing that I just, like, that stuff just transported me to a place and time when I was watching film as a little kid that I just really enjoyed. And watching Chadwick Boseman do anything is just fantastic. So, for me, I enjoyed 21 Bridges, man. I thought it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and even if you can see some of the things coming, I don't think you see all of the things coming, and the performances are just really, really, really top-notch stuff. So there you go, man. Those are all the C-Man's non-spoiler thoughts on 21 Bridges. The question is, what are you thinking, man? Are you one of the few who didn't go see Frozen 2 this weekend and went and checked out 21 Bridges? If you are, Did you think it was a paint by numbers cop thriller? Was it too predictable? Did you not like it? Or were you sucked in by fantastic performances, specifically from Chad Boseman, with top-notch action and a pretty solid storyline for a cop thriller? If whatever you were thinking, man, liking it or disliking it, what was working, what wasn't, goes down below in the comments. If you haven't seen 21 Bridges, you were with the majority of people who went to go see Frozen 2 this weekend. Tell me what you're thinking after listening to the old Seaman talk for like a while. Did I entice you? You want to check this out? Are you a fan of Chad Boseman? What is it that you're interested in 21 Bridges, or do you just not care? Whatever it is you're thinking, leave it in the comment section down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the Seaman anytime we're talking movies, specifically as we approach the Russo brothers' first directing movie post-MCU, you got to come join the Cinema Sit-Down Squad. It's the only thing you can do, man. You hit that subscribe button, you'll join the club, you'll see my thing pop up in your feeds, so you'll see the videos, and if you hit that little bell that follows it, and you'll get alerts every time I make a video, know exactly. Be the first to get in on some Seaman content, dude. Talking movies all the time. Sometimes TV, too. Anyway, I'm like derailing myself. That's all I got to say, man. So please, go do those things if you would like. As always, I'll keep cranking on the content for you guys. And until next time, for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I'm the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace. I don't even know what that was. Sometimes it just flows for no reason. Well, I'll be. You guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit-Down Squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.